Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts here in Seattle, Washington. Happy Friday, everybody. It's the 5th of February, 2021. And I just glanced at my notes just to make sure I knew what day it was, because I don't really know sometimes with the way the pandemic and the lockdown have been going on. Thank you so much for joining me, though. I really appreciate it. Before we get to our guest today, quickly coming up, I want to let people know that tomorrow, Saturday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here in Seattle, here on the West Coast of the United States, we have the second Fun Table session of the year, which is where I bring other creatives together, and we just kind of have like a virtual happy hour. And the really exciting news for me is that everything was already booked with my 3 guests that I'll have, and we actually have a 4th guest joining. He just confirmed like literally 20 minutes ago. So I have another guest that's going to be joining me tomorrow night. And then for those that are fans of symphonic metal, which is probably why you're tuning into this right now, on Monday, it's actually the exact same time at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I have Emma from Serenia joining me, and she'll also be connecting from France. And then I also have a guest coming next Wednesday, and also next Monday. So there's a lot of things going on. So if you follow me as Eclectic Arts Media on Instagram, that's the best place to see everything. That's where I post the most. I'm also Eclectic Arts on Facebook. And as you can tell, if you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook, if you could subscribe, follow, all of the usual kind of things. It really actually does make a big difference when those numbers start going up. So let me do something really quick here. Let's see. Hi, Bessie. Good to see you. And hi, Ken. Nice to see you as well down in Houston. And he's saying, tell Marina I love her, but I'm married. All right. Well, I just said it before you can, so there you go. But thank you for joining me and anyone else that's watching this right now. And hey, let's get to it, because I know people want to hear from my guests. They don't want to hear from me. My guest today is an amazing artist with an extensive background in musical theater. She has made a name for herself also in the symphonic metal world, which is where people most likely know her from. Her band Phantom Elite just released a brand new album, Titanium. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Marina La Torraca.
Hello.
Hi, Marina. How are you?
Hello, Mark. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining me and taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. And so before we get into everything with Phantom Elite and with musical theater, I like to always ask my guests, because it's been kind of different and also the same for everybody, how have you been coping for the last year during the pandemic, lockdown, everything, world coming to an end kind of situation?
Yes, barely coping. I mean, it's been hard for everybody for multiple reasons on professional, personal level. I mean, I went down with COVID last December. So did my boyfriend, who's also the drummer of Phantom Elite, and my family, my parents. But I mean, I'm only smiling about this because we're all fine.
Okay.
And hopefully it will remain like this, because you never know with this crazy virus. Anyway, so I'll knock on wood. Yeah, so it's been super crazy. I changed from being like basically on tour all the time, especially with the musical theater shows. So I changed from that to being mostly doing stuff in my house, which I've always worked a lot from home because I don't work at an office and a day job or something. So I did transform my living room in a studio so I can actually work better from here. And I have a plan B to kind of fall back on. Yeah, so I have a degree in architecture, and I did study a lot of design in that thing. So I do some, let's say, side jobs as a designer and technical drawer for architecture companies and some other companies. So I do that too.
Oh, that's
I am not starving. at the moment.
Well, that's
But
good.
I went. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, we're
I
fine.
can't hear you though, for some reason.
Oh,
Wait a
check
second.
one,
I'll do something.
two.
I'll be right back. I think I know what's
Okay.
going on.
All right.
Can
Check,
you say
check.
something?
Check, one, two. Check.
It's not working.
Hmm.
Just 1 second, though.
Okay. Yeah, and the audience is saying they can hear both of us. So it might be something on your end for some reason, because I can hear you perfectly.
Oh, damn. Yes.
Check, 1, 2.
Yes. Now
Okay.
it works.
Okay.
So I hate this. Yeah.
Technology.
Technology sometimes is just screwing up things. But anyway, yeah. So I've been coping somehow with the pandemic. I'm also coaching online voice lessons. That's
Okay.
also very interesting for people who are watching. Maybe want to take some voice lessons during the lockdown. That's what happened with many of my students. They were like, "Oh, I've always wanted to sing, and now I have time to do it."
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow. So that sounds, I mean, it sounds like you're making the best of the situation, and you've got a lot of different things going on, which is good. I'm
yeah,
glad that,
I try.
yeah, I'm glad that you and your family, came out the other end of
Yeah,
COVID, well and healthy and that type of thing.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and when you're mentioning that with your design and architecture background, has that ever spilled into something that you were doing for Phantom Elite? I was just curious when you mentioned, I didn't know that aspect of your background.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. We are now we have two designers in the band, so that's me and Max, the guitarist, and we actually have we're a bit of control freaks when it comes to that. We have complete control over the whole design and visual situation, like the even the videos. We came up with the whole, like for Diamonds in Dark, we came up with the concept. We spoke with the director about it. The second one, we also came up with all the concept. I built all the props myself with my mom. She built that crown on my head, so
Oh,
the golden thing, and costume, makeup. I do it myself also, so that's really cool.
oh, nice. That's got to be definitely a plus, having that background, and also like you mentioned, Max having the background too, that you can design things and
Yeah,
you don't have
it
to
is
farm it out to somebody
definitely heavy.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's talk about the new album Titanium. And at least the first question for me right off the top of my head is that the title track is freaking epic, and I'm wondering, just that song in particular. Can you kind of walk me through the whole creation of that title track?
Sure. Yeah. So Titanium was a bit of it was a tough one to to get done and rounded, and it sounded completely different in the beginning. I think we just had like the main riff, if I'm not mistaken, and the chorus was just not working well enough, and it didn't have that long bridge instrumental, progressive insanity that ended up happening there. The boys got together someday and they were like, let's tear this whole song apart and let's start from scratch, so they basically only kept the the main riff and built all the insanity in the middle, just because they were going crazy, at night, late at night, just like drinking a few beers and like, oh, should we do that, should we do that? And I was like, oh yeah, put some Gojira stuff in there. It's gonna sound great. And then we ended up kind of doing that for fun in a way, but then we were like, this is actually pretty good. And yeah, and then I wrote the vocal lines on top of what the guys had basically done, and I was like, okay, I don't think this mid part needs a lot of vocals. This is their time to shine, and go all out. And but it took us a while. It did take us a while. The only thing I knew is that the track was supposed to be called Titanium from the start. I just kind of knew. I was like, this needs to be the title track, and I don't know why, but I had this sentence, like lyrical sentence, like we're made of titanium, that I wanted the chorus to end on this. And so we kind of we spun things around and made it work.
Well, it worked very well.
Thank you. Thank you. This was an adventure. Yes, this song was really an adventure.
Well, and it kind of sounds overall that the whole album was a bit of an adventure with, you know, lineup changes from the previous album and that kind of thing. Can you kind of speak to that timeline of like, you know, kind of what happened with members going and coming and eventually getting down to working on Titanium?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. I think from the beginning of the band, members just started quitting one by one. So that's, I don't know why. It's not that Sander and I are very awful to work with, I'm sure. They seem to have very different personal motivations. Some, yeah, some very understandable. We were like, okay, sure, you know, like priorities in life. That's all right. You know, people are entitled to change their minds about focusing money and time on something or not. That's okay. Some were a little bit less friendly. Some goodbyes were, yes, a little more. How can I put that in nice words? Because I still want to be nice about it. Let's say, yeah, some goodbyes were not so friendly, and they ended up inspiring us in writing this whole album. Not only them alone, because they're not so powerful, but they had a big, they played a big part in us actually finding some themes for a couple of the songs.
Okay. So
Yeah.
there's a plus in terms of maybe that wasn't the best departure, but it gave you some material to work from.
That's exactly what we thought. We're like, you know what? Let's concentrate everything we're feeling into making awesome music. That's all we had in mind. We were not about, you know, petty discussions or whatever. We just thought like, okay, no, let's just do the best we can, you know, and work for a good cause, which is actually making music. And so yeah, it was actually not an easy period for us at all, because, you know, to make a band work, you need to have all band members super committed. You need to have financial support, and I mean, or you need to provide the finances, the financial support yourself, which is mostly our case. But it's just not easy, you know. And if you're in your end 20s or, you know, beginning 30s, which is basically the case here, we're like, yeah, I mean, do we really want to do this, you know, like start from absolute scratch, invest so much money? And also songwriting wise, we never worked with each other before, me and the two new boys. So we were like, yeah, we don't even know if this is going to work. And to be honest, in the beginning we tried many things because we wanted the sound to be more modern and we wanted to change it up a little bit, but it just wasn't working, you know. It wasn't working. And for some reason, once we said some goodbyes to to a few components that could have been or not dragging the process down, magically some things started happening. Like we started writing more, writing better. Frontiers hit us up with a deal offer, which was pretty much like timing wise perfect. And then that's like when Frontiers contacted us, I think we had like 4 songs or something. And then in 1 or 2 months, we had to have like the whole album written or something. And then we were like, oh, okay, let's do it. And that was kind of also pressure for us to finish writing the album, which was good. It was very good, because then we just sat down and wrote it, you know.
I used to work as an audio engineer many years ago for a computer company, and that period of time, initially I didn't like it, but in hindsight it was so valuable because of what you just said. I had to be creative on the spot with deadlines. I couldn't just take forever to come up with a 10-second music loop for a web piece. It's like, no, you need to do it now because the client wants it in 2 hours. And I'd be thinking, how am I supposed to come up with this stuff? But being in that kind of pressure cooker situation, man, it's helped me down the road for so many things that I do artistically. And
Yeah.
I'm really actually thankful for it. But at the time, I hated it.
Sure, sure. But I'm really a firm believer in deadlines. I really think people work well with deadlines. I do. I
Mhm.
know I do. You can't really rely on inspiration, right? But you have to have tools, creative tools, so you don't need to rely on inspiration. You know,
Yeah,
that's all about that.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And I, I I definitely have been working with deadlines for sure, and schedules, and business minded things. It's like, yeah, it makes sense if that's what you're going to be doing, and you have to kind of view it as a business. It can't just be all creative, artistic fun, and I'll do it when I'm inspired. It's like you may not be inspired. You got to still make it happen.
Yeah, or you inspired once a year, and that's not enough to build a career on, So that's definitely something.
Yeah, and when you're describing the kind of ups and downs during the period with the band, and then getting the new folks in, and just off top of my head, so is Titanium the title kind of reflective of that period? Like you're like super strong now as a band?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly why I had the idea of like, I was like, I think this whole theme of this album, it should be, I think I have a good name for the album. Even I was like, what do you guys think of Titanium? And they were like, oh, sick. It's cool. We like it. Yeah. So I think that then we also made many of the songs about that, in one way or another, about being strong. It sounds a little bit cliche, but the way I'm speaking now is way more cliche than the lyrics. So there you go. It's like, we got to be strong. It sounds very cliche, but the lyrics are not like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's almost kind of a bit of that phoenix rising from the ashes kind of thing. That we have this, we went through this stuff over here, but now we're that much stronger, and now we're just gonna take it to you.
Yeah, it's really like that. But it's also not only about us as a band, it's also about that. But it's also about, about anyone personally who goes through, everybody goes through, being human is suffering. So basically, you just need to learn how to cope with the bad emotions that you will feel. So that's just one, maybe a safe haven for, for anyone who's listening to it might identify, most definitely.
Yeah, well, I think it's resonating with a lot of people because the response to the new album has been tremendous.
Yes, yes.
And
We're really
so,
happy about that. Yeah.
yeah, and you should be. It means, yeah, you're striking a chord with somebody. And I think probably also, in kind of a weird way, but because of the pandemic lockdown situation that we're all going through, I think people are resonating with that album because, like you're just saying, because it's everyone's on some personal level, but dealing with something they've never had to deal with before. Um,
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, and they're finding strength in your music.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I didn't think about any any future pandemic when I was coming up with, lyrics for this album, but they're pretty fitting. Although we do have a song in Wasteland that's called Lockdown. It's a bit prophetic, maybe. I don't know.
Wow. And when you're talking about writing the songs for the new album, what's that process like in terms? So is it really truly a band collaboration? Is it kind of the guys are working on the music and then you start working on the vocal melodies and the lyrics, or what's that kind of look like?
Yeah, it's mostly like that. I would say for most of the songs, Max, the guitarist, came up. He already had lots of ideas. They were not ready, like the whole song completely ready. That, like, we changed a lot when it came to that. But he had many ideas that were already pretty polished, even, and also in sound wise in a direction that we really wanted to go to. So we were like, yeah, this is really good material. So I would say he mostly took care of that. We, like, took care of the structure of the songs and the arrangements, everything bit together. Our drummer made sure the drum parts were, you know, cool enough and fitting enough. And we also had some sessions that we actually sat together and did stuff together, like for Titanium, for example. So it was like kind of all over the place. silver lining, for example, used to be one old idea of like that I had, and I sent to Max, and I was like, can you make something out of it? And he came up with all the riffs that I can't write. You know, I'm not a guitarist. I won't even try to write good riffs because it just won't work, you know. So I just make sure I can write a solid, you know, melody, chord progression, basics, and then the boys can do whatever they want with it. But it's mostly been like that. So a lot of back and forth, mostly Max composing the instrumentals and me doing the vocal lines and lyrics. Yeah.
Okay, and that kind of a good segue. Like you were saying earlier, that you've been doing voice lessons with folks that want to take voice lessons from you. So can you tell me about your background? Because again, I know it comes from a musical theater background. So when did you first start getting involved with voice, music, all of that kind of thing?
Well, I started getting involved with music when I was around 14 or something. I always say I don't come from a musical family, so I didn't like grow up learning instruments and singing. Like my family they didn't really care about it, I think. So well, they educated me, but they're not musical folks. So I just found out that I really was into music when I found out the heavy metal. It was the first genre that really inspired me to do something with music. So I wanted to have a band right away. That's what I wanted. I was like, I heard metal for the first time and I was like, I need a band. I want a band. And I didn't play anything. So I started playing drums. I had some drum lessons. I had guitar lessons. And it basically took too long. You know, I could only play really basic stuff. So I started rehearsing with a friend, like some Blink 182 songs and, you know, stuff like that. Guns N' Roses, like Sweet Child of Mine. And that's basically Pearl Jam. That's all I could play on the drums or guitar. And then I found out like, no, this is all too slow. I'm just gonna start singing. And then I found out that it went easier for me, at least the singing thing. And yeah, it was a bit of a guess. So I started singing. I started auditioning for a few local bands, and right away I got involved with bands. So within a few months, I was already singing in an Iron Maiden cover band, and then that went nowhere. And then I joined another cover band that was actually pretty like famous locally, and the dudes, they were all like in their 20s and 30s, and I was 15 when I joined the band. It was like, okay, they found me good enough. And so there I learned a lot, and that's really how I started already in the band business. The musical theater was something that I started getting interested in later. So yeah, when I was like 20, my 20s, I started getting interested in musical theater. And then when I moved to Germany, I didn't sing for a long time. I didn't want anything to do with music because musical theater, I was trying to pursue a career in that in Brazil, and it was very frustrating. It was very frustrating, very to the point where it depressed me, and I didn't want to do anything with musical theater or music ever again.
Wow.
And yeah, but then I ended up changing my mind when I came to Germany. And yeah, I had a friend who was in a band, and he forced me into the rehearsal room with him. He was like, sing, girl, sing, and like gave the microphone on my hand, and I had to sing. And then they were like, wow, you're that good, I didn't know you could actually sing. Like, oh, thank you. Yeah, they thought I was just like, you know, playing in the shower or something, I don't know, but I had actually done that for a long time before, for a decade, I guess. And anyway, so that was motivation enough for me to, you know, kind of go back to singing. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and get some gigs here with musical theater. And it ended up working super well, to the point that I think for 2 or 3 years that's how I paid all my bills. It was with musical theater, and then the band stuff was actually on the side and more of a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see here,
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest production I've been in here in Germany, the anniversary tour of Rent.
Nice.
I played Mimi, who is the rock Latin chick. So I think that was a very fitting role. And it was a lot of fun. We played in Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. All it's completely German version of Rent, which was very weird. Super strange to sing all those classics in German. But oh well. Yeah, and but eventually, like, of course, the pandemic hit as well. But I was already more in the direction of, okay, I'm getting older now. I don't really want to be, going from audition to audition to, pray for a job here and there. That's like, it's not in my personality to do that. Some people love that thrill and something, but I don't. I'm actually a very boring person. And I actually love working from home and just being here with my boyfriend and like planning family and stuff like that. That's me. I'm boring. Then I thought, well, so let's do it. Let's just forget about the musical stuff. And that's what's happening. That's what happened in 2020. And I'm following through with that plan.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing all about your background and yeah,
No
being
problem.
being a part of Rent in the German version of Rent.
Very
Um,
cool.
and even though, like you said, you've moved on to, you really want to be doing the band is like the focus and that type of thing. If I don't know, if one of your favorite musicals came knocking in 2022 and said, "Hey, we want you in the lead role," would you go back?
Oh man. Oh man. Ah, that's a tough one. I actually had to in the when was it? Was it end of 2019? I think right before the pandemic started. Hamilton was opening auditions here in Germany, which is my favorite musical, by the way. And then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna audition. So I did. I auditioned and I went through many phases and they called me like to the callbacks and everything. And then I was like, I have to decide now if I really want to go through with this because there's no point in keep auditioning and getting like closer and closer to the price. And then I'm like, I can't do it. So I actually wrote them an email saying like, I'm sorry, but I can't go to the auditions. And they called me again. They sent me another email months afterwards and they were like, oh, are you sure you're not interested? I was like, don't ask me again. I can't refuse it twice. I mean, they weren't offering me the role. Just being clear, they were just asking for me to audition twice, which is already like a lot of interest.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, so I did have to say no. But if they said like the role is yours, it would have been harder to
Well,
decline.
yeah, and that's got. I mean, that's got to be on one hand nice, knowing that they were definitely interested in possibly offering you this role. That's why they wanted you to come back. But at the same time, then it caused you some sleepless nights of kind of going back and forth of like, where's my heart lie?
Absolutely. I think I cried. Like I cried a lot. I was like, oh my god, I could play one of the Schuyler sisters, maybe. Oh no. But no, but I was like, no, my decision is done. And I mean, maybe I would have gotten the job, maybe not. But still, like, even auditioning, like if you're going through the last parts of auditioning, it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of like it's a tough process, and you really need to give everything already. You need that. I had to learn all of the songs, all of the female songs from the show in different voices. Even like they wanted to test, I guess, more than 9 songs or something. So you really had to learn a lot. And I was like, yeah, this is only gonna get harder and harder to refuse. So if my mind is made, I should just stick with it.
And that makes sense, and especially based on what you just said, that there's more and more responsibility the further you get into the auditioning process. It's kind of like,
Yeah,
so I better make up my mind now before I,
exactly.
just it's that whole thing of go to the bathroom or get off the pot kind of a thing. It's like don't
Yeah,
sit there and keep
yeah,
dragging this
exactly.
out. So no, that makes perfect sense. That you said, you know what, I'm going to stop here. This is what I want to be doing. You know, as much as I like this, I'm going to be doing this, and this is where my energy is going toward.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But that kind of begs the question, and so obviously this is the first time that we're meeting and doing an interview, but I tend to do things from topics. I don't write out specific questions. So when I'm listening to my guests, sometimes questions come up to the top of my head. With your musical theater background and obviously with the symphonic metal background, do you ever see yourself doing like a concept record then that would kind of bridge the two?
Yes, every day. Every day I think about it, and I have hundreds of ideas. I started writing hundreds of stories and making mood boards, and I will do that. That is for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as we've been talking for the last half hour, it makes perfect sense with those two things, those two loves of yours, having them come together.
Yes. Yes. No, I would love to. And I most definitely will do one or more of those things because I love it. I just think that, I mean, for me, one of the biggest, well, the most fun parts of being a band is beyond music, is also being like creating everything, the whole visual stuff, like I said, and the whole moods and themes, and like I already have a lot of, yeah, I get a lot of joy and satisfaction from doing that, even if it's not a completely concept album, like with stories and character. If it's more abstract, like Titanium, for example, there's a clear, theme that's like a common thread connecting everything, and the visuals are coherent and there is an attitude behind it. I think it's all part of the fun for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm excited to see something down the road then where one of these ideas, maybe the idea will come out in a music video, or maybe it's going to be something, with a concept album or a record, or you write your own musical. I don't know. It could be anything really.
I'm I'm working on something at the moment that's like nothing is very concrete at all, but like some things are being spoken about,
Nice.
as we speak about the possibility of a concept album. Yeah.
Okay. And a long time ago, I used to work as a teacher. So when you mentioned doing vocal lessons, what have you learned from your students?
Oh, I actually learned a lot from them. The main thing is that like they always think that they are the only ones making that mistake, like in their lives, and it's very funny to hear like, see, I'm not the only one who thinks I'm the only one making mistakes. Everybody who's learning always think like, oh, I'm so stupid, and it's like, no, you're not. Everybody's in the same boat when we're learning. So that's the one thing. And yeah, I also see some problems, for example, some technical issues in singing that I do. Sometimes I hear like a student of mine who is like, I don't know, like just letting go of her support because she's at the end of a sentence, and then maybe I can hear that and I'm like, oh, I actually do exactly that, in this song and this song. So maybe that's the problem that I'm having to. So it's also easier to spot sometimes some mistakes that I might be doing when I hear someone else doing them.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. There was a small period of time where I was teaching guitar lessons, and just the process of having to break down what I do for a student, then I started realizing, oh, I didn't realize for all these years I've been doing something that I've been doing basically wrong, and I don't want to pass that on to my students. So you really start doing, there's a lot of reflecting on your own technique and things that you do. And then, I always learn something from my students. It didn't matter if they're beginning, intermediate, advanced, there's always something that they're doing that I'm also picking up from them for sure. It's a two-way street.
Sure. And when you're teaching someone, you're actually learning again. Because you're reinforcing that concept that you already knew somehow, but you're like, oh, you got to make it clear also for someone else, so it's also clearer for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And depending on like the students that you have, they might be bringing in, maybe a genre of music you're not, completely familiar with, or that you don't know a lot about. I used to have students that
Yeah,
would bring like a country,
sure,
song to me, and I'm
sure.
like, okay, I got to try to figure out this, finger picking thing that's going on
Yes,
right now,
yes,
and
exactly.
that's great because then it broadens my spectrum and my mind about what are they doing there, and I got to sit there and listen to it, and
Yeah,
then start.
absolutely. Yeah,
And that's kind of like what you mentioned earlier. That process can be so enlightening and just kind of really positive. And to me, anytime you learn something new, it's always a good day. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And before we wrap this up, I know that let's see, today's Friday, so it was yesterday. You shared a Throwback Thursday photo from your your one of your, I think it was your first band, and maybe that's one of the bands you talked about.
No, it was not my first band.
Oh, okay,
It was already my third or fourth band.
okay.
That's how long I've been doing it.
Now,
Uh,
what can you tell me about that photo and that band? Was that a cover band, original material? What was
yes, it was a cover band. That one was an Evanescence cover band.
Oh,
It
okay.
was like right when Evanescence released Fallen. I think one year after that, it was like a huge hype,
Hmm.
and I think righteously so because it's one of my favorite albums up till today. It's just awesome. It's a masterpiece. And yeah, so I had two Evanescence cover bands, and that's one of them. And then we needed some material to get bookers to book us, and so we did those photos at the cemetery, which seemed like a very good idea, but it was also a time thing. It was a style thing, the whole gothic-y thing of those early 2000s was like, it was very funny to see that many of the people that follow me on Instagram were like, oh yes, I went through that same phase. So it was a general thing for the rock and metal fans.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, again, anyone, if you're into anything dark, you kind of remember that that period of what was
Yes, if
going on.
you're into anything dark, you have embarrassing photos, I'm sure.
Yep, that includes me.
Yep, I
I
bet.
I have them when I had, like, long hair down to my butt and all that kind of thing. Yeah,
What happened to your hair?
it went away a long time ago.
Did you want it to go away, or was it just going away and then you were like, okay, I'll just.
It was going away on its own, and I told myself I would not be one of those people with like a little ring of hair,
Yes.
and so it got to a point where, and I can tell this story really quick, that this was 2001, that the Seattle Mariners is the Major League Baseball team here in Seattle. And so once a year, they used to do this promotion where you could go down there and get your head shaved because one of their baseball players was shaved. And he would actually
Oh,
be there, and he'd be one of the guys shaving heads of fans and stuff.
oh,
Yeah, so my
cool.
my friend and I were like, well, I'm losing my hair, and he had a full head of hair, but we went down there anyway and got our head shaved, and we're laughing at each other and pointing fingers and stuff. And they put all the bald fans in one section at the stadium, so you could see like rows of bald people. And
Oh,
ever since then,
goodness.
I just kept it. It's just like, I don't have hat hair. I don't have to worry about the wind. I don't have to, any of that stuff. It's like, I'm just going to keep it like that. And then, but my friend, he grew his hair back.
All right, I can see. I can see why.
Yeah, and
Oh, cool. That's a cool story.
yeah, so that's yeah, I've been bald for, well, I guess it's been 20 years now. Now that I think about it, it's 2021.
Ooh.
Holy moly! And I see, hi, Marlena over in Greece just joined us too. I hope I'm not butchering your name, Marlena. I know it's the front, and the two names that come together. It's a big fan of yours, Marina, that just joined us from Greece. So she's watching this right now. But and you also mentioned that when you first heard metal in Brazil, so that's when you're like, I want to be in a band. I want to kind of get things going. What band or bands were that? What caught your attention back then?
What? I'm sorry. I
Oh,
lost you in your last sentence. You were like,
what
cut it.
what bands did you get into early on when you
Oh,
said I want to be into like a band or a metal band type of thing?
yeah. So the first band that I ever listened to, like metal band that really got me, and I was a huge fan, was Iron Maiden.
Okay.
So I walked up and down with Iron Maiden t-shirts, and everybody thought, I was a dude or something. or I was a very manly girl, just because I walked around with Iron Maiden shirts every day, and I didn't care. What else did I listen to? A lot of Halloween from the Kiska days.
Mm-hmm.
I was into all of the symphonic, not symphonic, more the melodic power metal
Okay.
things that was like pretty big in the 90s, and like 90s I was a kid, but like more towards the 2000s, like
Mm-hmm.
the Stratovarius, Rhapsody, Labyrinth. They're still doing stuff, by the way. They released an album the same day we did, I guess, through the same label. And Angra, the Brazilian band, was also huge inspiration for me. Yeah, Evanescence was a really huge. The first, let's say, female vocalist that I was really into was Amy Lee.
Okay.
Because I was not the biggest fan of the symphonic operatic vocals. I wasn't really into Nightwish, although I do like nowadays, if I listen to the old Nightwish stuff, like Wishmaster or Oceanborn, I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Nemo, all those stuff. It's like good stuff. But I didn't like it back then. And I also didn't like After Forever, which is very funny that now I work with Sander. I didn't even know who he was. I met him. I was like, oh, it's the guitarist from After Forever. Too bad I don't know any song. Like, yeah, it's just crazy. But yeah, that's like the first band that I actually liked was Evanescence, because they were heavy. They were, yeah, I'm really into like heavier stuff. It's not like beating around the bush much. They're very straightforward, and the whole, okay, this is going wrong. The whole new metal, Linkin Park, Korn, all the Slipknot, the whole new metal wave. I think they were like a very helpful in the whole metal scene, I think, and I liked all of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. That.
And yeah, so that's the stuff that I kind of grew up listening to, that I absorbed like a sponge, and then the older I got, the more aggressive my taste started being. It's either like I really love a few things about music. Is like it needs to be super dramatic, super sad, or super aggressive, or a combination of three. There's nothing I hate more than super casual music, like singer songwriter, like whiny things that are not super dramatic. It's just annoying whiny. And indeed, yeah, I don't like any of that. But any other thing, like for example, in pop music, I also love pop music. Lady Gaga, for example, all the stuff she put out until this last album, that's like I don't understand any of it. I don't like it. But still, it was like dramatic, it was theatrical, it was like, lots of things coming together. So that's what I like in music. It doesn't really matter the genre.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a real quick question that came through about were you the only one in your family or in your close friends that was listening to metal back then?
In my family, for sure, but my close friends were also into it. So that's why I think I got into it because of like older boys that lived in my building that were listening to it. And I was like, oh, let me listen to that. That's really cool. And then also my best friend back then, Carol, she might be watching it, by the way. Sometimes she is. She was a big fan of Guns N' Roses. So she was like the Guns N' Roses fan, and I was the Iron Maiden fan. And we were both like 15. I don't know. Yeah.
All right. I think it's kind of common because I know for myself, I first got into Kiss, and it's because of an older neighbor who was playing, I think it was Kiss Alive 2 at the time. And I was looking at the album cover, and I was an impressionable, like 8-year-old. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I also looked at like Fear of the Dark, the vinyl cover, and I was like, wow, what is this? This is so cool.
Yeah, especially with Maiden's artwork. I mean, good grief. I mean, it just pops out at you. You just get, you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Even if you don't like it, you're still gonna look at it,
yeah, for sure.
really big thing. Yeah.
And Marina, to kind of wrap this up, so obviously we're in the midst of this transitional period with the pandemic and the lockdown. Is there anything that we can be looking forward to from Phantom Elite in terms of like another music video, or are there some loose plans for like the fall, or what's kind of coming up?
Well, we do have some loose plans for touring whenever to that would be like really the earliest winter 2021. And videos, yes, for sure, we're planning on releasing more of those, or some acoustic performances. We have a lot planned that we need to get to it, but at the moment we can't even meet to do anything. We can't even be in a room together, so we're just waiting for things to at least get a little bit more normal, so we can at least meet and make videos.
Well, here's hoping things, yeah, start to open up over there with the different countries, so that you can start, yeah, moving forward with being in the same room or trying to do
Absolutely.
something,
Yeah.
and keep pushing this, this wonderful album forward, because it's, everyone needs to hear that hasn't heard it, and we want it to have legs. We want it to last, through the year and into when you can actually get
Yes.
back out on the road. So
We wanted to, for sure. Like, the last thing we want is just to drop everything right now. It's like, no, we really want to make sure that it gets more ears, if that makes any sense.
yeah, and another question came in real quick. Let's see. What is the inspiration behind Glass Crown lyrics?
Oh, it's a very dear friend of mine. No, I'm joking. It's well, the inspiration, I think, came from being extremely annoyed at the whole social media culture. That, like, I mean, especially if you're an artist and you're kind of forced to be there, because if I didn't do anything, if I had, let's say, a normal job and I worked at a bank and I didn't need social media to promote myself, I don't think I would be there at all. Like, if
Mhm.
it was a choice, it's like, good Lord, that thing is just, like, what a rabbit hole for mental pressure and illness. Like, for real, it's horrible. And especially if you're out there as an artist, I thought about, like, okay, I might as well make a stand, what me personally, and also I would say it's a coincidence, but it's not, because the boys in the band are really like-minded, so they also see it like me, that they are not a big fans of, like, show off status, lying about shit online. They are more like, they are more low key, on social media, which is like totally fine, and I can respect that. But yeah, it actually is about all that. The one can literally go crazy if you're not careful enough to think about, like, wait a minute, everything that is being shown to me from these people that put themselves in a perfection place, it's all super curated, and I personally know a few artists I have met that really do, like, they really try so hard to put out a perfection image, to for some reason that's what their followers want. And it's just so horrible to see that, in their personal lives they're not at all nearly as fulfilled or accomplished as they try to, because we are all human beings. We all take shit. We all fart. We all have issues. We all have. My boyfriend just looked at me like, are you really saying that? Yes, I mean, that's just true. And we're all gonna die. And I mean, it's really good to want to inspire people on social media and having a reason to be there, and sharing beautiful stuff and art. That's awesome. That's what it's good for. Or to keep in touch with your friends that are far away. Amazing. But we know that it's not all about that. So that was the inspiration behind it. I was like, yeah. So it's basically a cautionary tale about the whole social media culture, but it's also a way of making a stand, because I really do I am personally about showing, like, well, if I have to be online and if I do have some reach, I want to show as much of the real me as I can, That's why I don't care that much if I'm wearing makeup or not. And I know sometimes you just look more put together and it's nice to look good. Definitely. I'm all for that, and I have fun with makeup. But I don't feel like, for example, for this interview, that like, oh, I'm stressed because I'm not wearing makeup. Well, it is what it is. Yeah. And yeah, so me and the guys as a band, that we definitely stand for more authenticity in the world, please. That's just like, that's what we want with our music. That's what we want with our art. That's what we want from our fans. Like, we love open contact with our audience. So yeah, that's it. We don't put ourselves in a pedestal that we're above anybody. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, no, that's a wonderful take on things, and I'm right there with you. And granted, I'm a small outlet here in Seattle, Washington, but I feel the need because of how things are with publicists and managers and all these other people, that I have to have numbers for social media. They always
Sure.
ask, they want analytics all the time, and I understand why they're asking, because they want to know your reach and your audience and all these kind of things.
Sure.
But if I wasn't doing this, no one would be hearing from me on social media. Not right now.
There you go.
It'd be like,
No.
there's so much negativity on there. It does
Yeah.
become this whole rabbit hole that you can get lost and go down, and you keep checking things and you start looking at people's stuff. And if someone comments on it, you may not even know who that person is. And
Exactly.
you're like, you don't know me, and you're going to put something negative out like that. And I want to block you now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't need this drama. I don't need it
Yes.
at all.
It's
And
awful. Yeah.
and I'm right there with you that you can portray yourself any way you want on social media. So, and I'd rather see someone try to be as authentic and transparent as they can be, instead of like putting out this image of like, oh, I'm this all the time, and then you meet them in person, and you're like, well, what happened to that that image
Yeah.
that it built up in my I built up this thing in my head, and you're nothing like it. You're actually a jerk, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm all for exactly what you and the band are about in terms of the authenticity and just kind of being real with people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Marina, it was awesome talking with you and getting a chance to
thank
know
you.
you better. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time, and I wish you and the band every success in the world with the new album and everything that you do. And if we can ever do a part 2 down the road, I would love to come back to this kind of forum and do it. And I'll reach out to you directly about that. But thank you so much.
Absolutely. Just hit me up whenever you want. All right.
Thank you. Have a good night over in Germany, and everybody who joined us. Thank you.
You have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.